Arizona cities along the southern border, they are bracing for the release of just thousands of illegals as funding runs out. What's this going to look like? Let's get into it. Here we go.
This is a serious problem. Now, there's a reason that we don't see the same scenes of migrants living on the streets here in Phoenix and Tucson as we do in other states. There's a network of government agencies and nonprofits that make sure asylum seekers are picked up, housed, and then sent on their way. But the money that makes that happen is about to run out. When migrants arrive at the border seeking asylum, some are sent back to Mexico. But the ones with valid asylum claims are given a court date and released. Nearly 500,000 of them here in Arizona since 2019. Customs and Border Protection officers process them, then drop them off in Douglas, Nogales, Yuma, Tucson, Casa Grande, Gila Bend. They've even been released in Phoenix.
Let's talk about this for just 1 second here. So Douglas and Nogales, those are on the U.S. side. Those are small towns. On either one of those, there is not much there. On the Mexico side, those towns are a little bit bigger. So dumping people off in the towns of Nogales or Douglas because you can't get them to Tucson or Casa Grande or, all the way up to Phoenix or Gila Bend or Yuma, because you're not able to get these folks by bus to here because the money has run out, you're basically just dumping people out into these border towns. And that's happened before. And so part of the reason they want to get to a Phoenix or a Tucson is because oftentimes they're taking plane rides to elsewhere. They're getting a plane ticket or they're getting a bus ticket because those are kind of your regional hubs. And if you've got an international airport, you can get people direct. It's cheaper. And that's what we're doing here. And the folks that have come across the border, they don't want to stay on the border. They want to get a little further away. They're still afraid of being deported. That whole thing.
Pima County sends buses to pick up and transport an average of 1,000 asylum seekers per day to temporary shelters in Tucson, where they stay for 1 or 2 nights before being sent on to their final destinations. Places around the country where asylum sponsors or family members live. It's that arrangement that has prevented migrants from wandering the streets in cities across Arizona. But the federal funding that makes that work is about to run out.
We're very concerned at the moment.
Tomas Robles works for the International Rescue Committee in Phoenix, the nonprofit that takes in asylum seekers here and helps move them on to their final destinations.
Right now, we're averaging between 200 and 250 people staying the night per night at the Welcome Center.
Robles says IRC may be
every single night, and that's just that center. Cha-chung, 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 cha-chung. So if you have 250, over 4 nights, it's not, half a week. You got 1,000 people. You dump 1,000 people out in the streets of Nogales? Yeah, that's not going to look real good.
Be able to hang on until June. In Pima County, the funding could run out at the end of March. The bishop of the Tucson diocese took the extraordinary step of asking people to donate money to keep its shelter open.
Your gift will help staff and volunteers to purchase food, basic toiletries, or even bus tickets so these legally processed asylum seekers.
Legally processed asylum seekers. Let's just cut that down to illegals, because that's what they are. They crossed illegally, didn't they? Came into the U.S. illegally. They didn't come in through legal means. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. So there's that.
Can peacefully reach their destination.
This week, Governor Katie Hobbs sent a letter to Congress asking to allocate $752 million towards the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Shelter and Services Program, which funds the nonprofits in Arizona and in other states. Assuming the Congress does not act Is the state prepared to step in and start funding some of these programs, or are we going to see street releases?
We are working with with Border Patrol, with the NGO network, with our emergency management folks on a plan.
This morning, Hobbs said there is a limit to what the state could realistically pay for.
I hope that we don't see street releases. We're going to do everything we can to avoid that. But as you know, our budget picture isn't great, and we've expended a good amount of the funds we have available for these programs.
If the funding does run dry, it is likely we will see images like these, common in other parts of the country where asylum seekers are living on the streets.
So here, because there's no more room at the inn. No more room at the inn. And that's just what happens. All right. There's not much more in this video. Let's move on to it. Let's read the story. Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs says her office is working with city and county governments, nonprofits, and Customs and Border Protection officials in an effort to avoid what could soon become a crisis. A flood of asylum seekers or illegals released into the streets with no place to go. We're at a crucial juncture, said Hobbs on Thursday. And this has happened before. This happened in 2018 and 2019. There was no funding. Nobody had any money to do anything. Just let them go. Let them go. Just release them to the streets. Earlier in the week, she sent a letter to the chairpersons of the Senate and House Appropriations Committee asking for that $752 million. She's advocated for the House to pass the bipartisan immigration security bill that the Senate considered earlier this spring. That was a terrible bill. What are you talking about? Hobbs advocated for that $118 billion bipartisan immigration security bill, even though it was a bad deal. Bad deal. Something I heard the other day was somebody said, if you can cap the border at 5,000 a day, you can cap it at close to zero. You can just secure the border. If you're telling me at this point in time, that's what it's going to take to secure it, then you've proven, hey, you can do it with way, way less. Since 2019, Pima County has used federal funds to temporarily house and then transport asylum seekers out of the state, where they would stay with asylum sponsors or relatives. To date, the program has moved more than 400,000 asylum seekers through Arizona and onto their final destinations. These are people who are deemed to have valid asylum claims. We don't really know, right? Because we're not really vetting them. All right, doesn't appear as you've murdered anybody, but we don't know much more than that beyond that. So here's your court date in 6 years. There's your court date in 2031. So they have valid asylum claims after an initial interview with Customs and Border Protection officers and have a date set in immigration court for an asylum hearing. Due to the current backlog, which is about 3 million cases, right? Those court dates are now roughly 3 years into the future. I've heard dates way longer than that, way longer than that. Pima County contracts with Casa Elitas, which is run by the Catholic Church, to do the actual work. It costs about $1 million per week. How much money would we save? Or maybe we just need to defund this whole thing, put it into border protection. I don't know. Doesn't that seem reasonable? Yeah. Defund whatever it is that this whole industrial complex of illegal aliens is. County leaders estimate the federal dollars that pay for the work would run out at the end of April. So we are coming down on a couple of months. You're going to start to see, run out of money here, run out of money here, run out of money here. Federal government's going to have to step in. There is no way the government is not going to step in on this stuff. Your gift will help staff and volunteers to purchase food and basic toiletries, even bus tickets, so these legally processed asylum seekers can peacefully reach their destination. What if they stayed at home because they don't really have a valid asylum claim? What about that? What if they just stayed home because, they do? However, donations would likely only amount to a small amount of money needed to keep the operation running. In Phoenix, the International Rescue Committee, or IRC, houses asylum seekers who are released in Yuma and Casa Grande. They average 200 to 250 people each night. The thing about the numbers that we're going to talk about today are just, it's such an everyday occurrence, 200, 250 Boom, out the door they go. Get on a bus, go. 200, 250 more come in these migrant processing centers every single day. And that's how you get to 302,000 in the month of December when you've got 10,000 a week coming across in some of these border areas. I mean, it's just insane. 4,000 in one day down at the Shelby Park area. We're very concerned at the moment, said Thomas Robles, the asylum seekers and whatever, director of whatever. Asylum seekers come to the Welcome Center to get a bit of a short-term respite, about a night or 2 nights to rest and recover from a long journey. And then they usually head out to their next destination. Why is the U.S. government so hell-bent on just accommodating all these people to just come into the United States? And yeah, here you go. One of my other topics today is the state of Washington is no longer requiring you to have citizenship to get a whole host of professional licenses. From bail bonds to, I mean, you name it. Physical therapy, personal trainer, real estate appraiser, real estate broker. You're illegal? No problem. You just use your illegal number and your tax ID number that they'll give you because they want to collect taxes from you. Just use that number and get your license. You're good to go. You could start an appraisal management company, an AMC, and you're illegal. Yeah. Hey, where's my appraisal order? Your dude got deported. He got deported. He didn't make it to his court date. Oh, what happens to his company? Oh, yeah. Don't really know. But anyway, go ahead and hand out those professional licenses willy-nilly. Should be fine. That's literally what the state of Washington, Governor Inslee just did this past week. So based on the number of asylum seekers who Customs and Border Protection processes at this time, if the shelters are no longer able to take in migrants and Pima County can no longer pick them up in southern Arizona and transport them to shelters, this is what it would look like. So Nogales each day. Nogales is on the border. It is south of Tucson. So you've got the Nogales, you've got the Mexico side, which is a big city, and then Nogales on the U.S. side, just literally across the border. It's a pretty small town. There's not a lot there. You got 300 to 400 asylum seekers dumped out into the streets of Nogales each day. And they're a long ways away from a from an international airport. You got 100 and 150 streets of Douglas each day. Douglas is about an hour to the east of Nogales. So people from Douglas, it's also another border town. From Douglas, you would go up to Tucson. And you got 500 being dumped onto the streets of Tucson each day. So all of these other border towns that are literally on the border, they would feed people directly into Tucson because Tucson's got an international airport and there's a lot of travel and it's just a bigger city, right? And then eventually 200 to 300 asylum seekers are released onto the streets of Phoenix each day, even though Phoenix is considerably further north and west. But again, it's got the big international airport. So you're sending out, you can get people to there on a bus and then they can get a cheaper plane ticket and they can go wherever they want. Plus there's some community in Phoenix. And part of the reason they don't want to be close to the border is because they're afraid of being deported. Yeah, get me away from that border. Send me El Norte. Send me up north. We'll see what happens. So without these migrant centers, so literally what's happening on the southern border right now in Texas, if Border Patrol gets a hold of somebody, they will literally not turn them back. They will bring them in and they'll get to a local processing center, which is what we're talking about. They take cover there. They sleep there overnight, whatever it takes. And then they take their bus ride to whatever, whether it's Phoenix or Tucson, kind of a big city with an international airport, maybe fly them out, get more bus rides, whatever it is, worked out to wherever they're going to go. That's the process they're doing. Whereas Governor Abbott, if his folks get to the illegals before they cross the river, they're going to deport them and send them back across. They're going to say, no, you go across. Or they arrest them and let their own police deal with them. And there's all kinds of, legal battles going on between the U.S. government the Federals and the National Guard state of Texas, because they've got different agendas. One is to protect the border. The other is to bring as many illegals across as humanly possible. And why that is going on, that is the question of the hour. What is the end goal? By doing this, what are we doing? So without that money, these folks are going to start coming in daily. Call it 400, 550. You got 1,050. And you got another 300, 1,350 a day. And that's just Arizona. So 1,350, cha-chung, 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 every day. You can imagine after 3 weeks of that, if money doesn't come through to these entities, these governmental operations, then that's literally what's going to have to happen. They won't have these migrant centers open. They're just going to dump them out onto wherever they are. Good luck, guys. Good luck. Hey, you make it up to Washington, get yourself a professional license. Don't even have to be a citizen. It's golden. Just El Norte again. El Norte. Just get your ass up there. When asked if the state government is prepared to step in and fill in the gaps when the federal funding runs out, Hobbs said that there are limits to what the state can do. They're all pushing for federal money because they don't want it to take away from their own state budget or city budget, even though they're self-proclaimed. Now, Chicago and New York City, that's a different drill than what we've got going on here in Arizona. Arizona literally sits on the border, but Arizona has also not pushed back like Governor Greg Abbott has in Texas. California has not pushed back. You got people swimming out in the ocean, coming around that border. You got people in boats. You got people, all kinds of, just an hour east of San Diego in California, just coming across. Because everybody knows in California, they are not pushing back on the border. They're just going to bring them in, and I'm sure it'll all work out. Send a few hundred a day to L.A. They'll work it out on the streets of Skid Row. It'll be fine. What could possibly go wrong there? Yeah. I hope that we don't see street releases. We're going to do everything we can to avoid that. But as you know, our budget picture isn't great. Big deficit in Arizona. And we've expended a good amount of funding we have for these programs. Yes, you have. So has Texas. So has Florida. So has every street that's on the border. And to me, what is so nutty is that we don't have to be spending all this money. We don't have to be spending all this taxpayer money. We can spend a fraction of that and actually protect the border and keep those people out. But that's not what we're doing. We're literally, all right, you're under arrest. You hear that from Customs and Border Protection. Are you really arresting somebody if they swim across the river, you hold their hand, getting them up the bank, and then you make sure they get all dried because we don't want hypothermia or anything like that. We don't want anybody to drown in the water. Hundreds of people have drowned trying to make it across. I mean, if we're going to have this masquerade of helping people, helping them survive, why don't we just walk them across the bridge that is typically there, right? Just going across the Rio Grande. You've got to have a bridge, right? Because people can't walk on water. Jesus did, but that's a different story. That's a story of a higher power, right? Whatever you want to believe there. But no, if people walked across the bridge going across the Rio Grande, they don't drown. So why do we have this big song and dance of, is Customs and Border Protection going to get them first and they're going to get to come in and get on a bus? Or is Texas National Guard going to get them if you're in Texas? And so all that pressure being put on Texas's border is pushing the illegals and the cartels to Arizona, to California, to Mexico, to New Mexico, although that area isn't very big. So there's going to be a big pressure to go that direction because you've had crossings this entire time. You've still got crossings in Texas, just not as many. That number has really shrunk. The other thing that I think you've got going on, and it'll be interesting to see the timing, is that, okay, say some of this funding runs out in April. All right, so that's April. Or maybe it runs out in June, like they're talking about. It's going to be before the election. It's going to be a few months before the election, and all these states and cities are going to be screaming for federal funds. And this is the number one hot topic because Biden has basically just allowed millions of people to come into the United States illegally. And we've just set up this system where we just basically hold their hand, get them into the country. And we bend over just absolutely backwards, like the state of Washington. Here you go. Here's a professional license. Go out and do some bail bonding. Go out and become a bail bondsman. Go out and become a, I mean, you name it. Go become a physical therapist. Go become, all these things. I mean, what could possibly go wrong with an illegal alien getting a hold of a real estate license and then appraising some real estate for federal transactions that are backed by federal banks? What could possibly go wrong there? John, you're imagining things. Really? Because some of the licenses, they're going to be, money, people sending money. Money senders. I remember what it was. Currency, whatever. Just let a bunch of people who aren't United States citizens that may or may not have a reasonable chance of actually getting citizenship. Give them a license. Let them start a business. This should be fine. It'll be fine. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Right? Roll into your physical therapy appointment. What happened? Where's my therapist? I got deported. Another one? Again? Probably not. You're not going to see anybody get deported. We're not even deporting in these sanctuary cities in a sanctuary state like Washington is. I don't know if it is officially. I'm sure it is. It's Washington, right? It's Washington. So, yeah, what literally could go wrong? A ton. We haven't vetted these people, and yet we're handing out professional licenses. It's insane. And what they're trying to do is, some of these people would like to study this. I'm like, how about they study that back in their own home country and come to the United States legally? How about that? Like a lot of other people have done, are doing, and will do down the road legally. What about that? Instead of this whole, getting into the country illegally. And if you've crossed the border illegally, I'm going to call you illegal, period. That's just what we're doing here. So it'll be really interesting to see the timing of all this money running out on top of the surge of migrants, which is going to happen, and then the elections, because so much of this has to do with political stuff. Right now, Biden has got the Mexican government putting people basically on a conveyor belt or a treadmill. So if you get busted near Mexico City, they'll send you back 6.5 hours to the south. If you get busted there in that area, they'll send you another 3 hours back. You get busted there, you get sent another 2 hours back, and you end up, if you go all the way back, then you're going to end up on the Mexico-Guatemala border. So you're going to be at, point zero. You've taken steps back if you're basically caught and you're from a different country and you're not in Mexico legally. Mexican army is basically going to, they've got people on that, conveyor belt is what I would typically call it. Meaning they're not getting past Mexico City and they're not getting up near the southern border, able to actually cross. So you've got a whole bunch, hundreds of thousands within this conveyor belt system of just kind of treading water. They're just walking on the treadmill, not getting anywhere. And they're actually getting bumped back, and then they'll make it forward and get bumped. There's a bunch of that going on as well, which has shrunk the numbers. At some point in time, the Mexican government is going to say, yep, we can't do this anymore. We helped you out. We helped you out politically. Does this go through the election? Maybe, because all the hundreds of thousands that were fleeing through the southern border into the United States illegally, that just wasn't a good look for the current administration. There's so many things that have not been a good look. And it'll be really interesting to see if, come election time, what the dynamics of this actually look like. So keep your eye on Arizona. That's a little bit of a hot potato because they're not pushing back. They need the money. They're just going to take people in. They need the money to keep running. $1 million a week. We saw from that one church, $1 million a week in that one community. I mean, that is some money. And if you just put a halt to the illegals coming over willy-nilly, how much of that money would it save? Yeah, interesting question, right?
2024, remember, it's our final battle. We're either going to have a country greater than ever before, or we're not going to have a country at all.